King Edward VI School in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk is a mixed upper school with over 1,300 students. Here, aspirational targets are a priority, with head teacher Jeff Barton driving the idea forward, starting at pupil entry at Year 9. It's a task that requires involvement from the whole school, including senior management and support staff. And we'll see how an English teacher and an RE teacher are working on aspirational targets in their lessons, using classroom resources supplied by Sport Relief, the biennial fundraising campaign for Comic Relief. The case studies for Key Stage 3 are Martin from Belfast and Jessica from Brazil. Val McGregor, an expert in raising attainment, has been invited to observe and comment on the school's overall approach and on the 2 lessons.
If a school is going to really make something like aspirational targets meaningful and successful for all pupils, you've got to have a clear understanding that drives through the whole school, and it has to start with the head and senior leadership team, but also being able to make it clearly understood to everybody how that's going to happen at all levels.
The ethos is important to us. We use the word a lot, probably too much for some people's taste, because we think that you can shape young people's perception of the world through the kind of world you create within school. We think that every student should have an experience of doing something like sailing or going to the opera or whatever it might be, because there are some children from privileged backgrounds who are going to get that because of their parents. Well, we think every child should have something like that.
Deputy Head Julia Upton is the next link in the chain, responsible for translating the head's vision into action in the classroom.
When I came here, I would describe it as being quite a good school, but not a fantastic school. But we've done loads of initiative in terms of firstly trying to raise aspirations of the students, trying to increase their drives. And I want us to think, how well are we going to do in the future? What this tells me, when I arrived here, there was always lots of data in the school, but we used to kind of hide it and not really show it to anybody. And if I was a teacher, then I might kind of have a little look at it and look at the students in my class and think, oh, right, make an assumption about you, but we never shared it with anybody. What we've done here is really change the culture of using data with students and with parents. What we need to be quite cautious with is how we use it, and we've not sent it home on a piece of paper. We get parents in on what we call our target setting review days, and tutors have dialogues with the student and the parent and have an actual conversation with an individual rather than just being a figure on a page. But what I hope it shows you is that, yeah, you can do loads better than that. You can get A's, you can be those people, but you need to think now about the kind of student you are right now to make yourself be this person here.
There's a good starting point we saw there where you share the data, share what's happened in previous years, but then you need to get into, so how can you improve? What are the practical strategies in terms of study skills, learning, organisation, and finding out what you don't know so that you can fill those gaps, and then it becomes a doable task for them as well as the school.
The Sport Relief team consulted with teachers to devise suitable tasks and activities for Key Stage 3.
We created the Sport Relief lesson plans, and we also have a resource bank with all the Sport Relief resources so teachers can create their own lesson plans. We chose Martin's story for Key Stage 3 because he's facing gang conflict issues in his community, and the fact that he's rising above that by going to the Comic Relief project and using football to help him stay away from that, but also it's inspiring him to further his education at university.
To see students in other parts of the world overcoming real difficult challenges and succeeding, I think is really important.
Pete Wright is using 15-year-old Martin's story in today's English lesson.
Our objectives will be to understand Martin's story and then hopefully for you to begin to appreciate your own hopes and aspirations for the future. Now we're going to look at Martin's story and we will read it together.
Hello, my name's Martin and I come from Belfast in Northern Ireland. I'm 15 years old and I go to the Midnight Street Soccer project funded by Comic Relief. The area I live in has been affected by violence and conflict for many years.
Thank you very much. Martin doesn't want to get involved. And he actually says when he sees the gangs, when he's walking home, he tries to walk past so that he doesn't get roped in, he doesn't get forced into the gangs. I think the students responded well to the story, and hopefully they'll start to get out the fact that things don't have to go in a particular direction with their own lives. We're going to see how Martin finds something which not only helps him but helps others. Would you like to read on?
I started going to the Midnight Street.
I think the idea of Martin's story is a good story because it helps to get them to focus on possible routes in their lives and the opportunities that they may or may not have. I want to introduce the final thing for today. You've got two choices. The purpose of the storyboard, if you choose that task, is to pick part of Martin's story, and you are going to work out which particular scene you would like to film and how you're going to film it. If you want to be a bit more active and you want to show something, then you can get into groups and you can set up a role play involving Martin, and at the end of it you've got to be prepared to come out the front here and actually act it out in front of the group.
Striking thing about that English lesson, which actually is part of a real agenda for aspirational targets, is personalisation. We talk about that, but I think many schools don't really understand what we mean, and we saw it in action in that classroom because they were offered a creative or collaborative or a personal approach to it. And the teacher said he hoped they would take a variety of opportunities, and they did. But that was down to them, which shows they understand their own learning styles, but also given the chance to nurture them.
Sandeep Fagura is using Jessica's story as a starting point for her RE lesson.
We thought Jessica's story for Key Stage 3 would be ideal because she is a very inspiring role model. She's facing very difficult challenges in where she lives, but she's actually rising above those challenges. But also she's a very lovely, bubbly girl who loves to dance and loves life in general.
Passage House helps because it's somewhere safe for us to have fun and share our problems.
I think they understood why Jessica needed to focus in on something, especially in the area that she was living, which was kind of ridden with drugs and crime. And although they wouldn't understand that as much here, I felt that they really thought that she was aspiring to do something.
Sandeep has created 3 fictional characters who need help and advice.
If either Dana, Joe, or Daniel, if they come up to you and ask you, how could I change things? How could I turn things around for me? How can I make my life better? What advice would you give them to do that? Harry's group. Who are you giving advice to, and what advice would you give them?
Daniel, he needs to realise that taking drugs will stop you from being a footballer and all that.
Okay.
And there's 2 brothers who he teaches football to.
Yes.
They obviously aspire to him, so he's not really setting a very good example to his 2 younger brothers.
Excellent point, absolutely fantastic. Who picked Joe?
Jo maybe could, when she goes to college and university, could pick up childcare and work at a nursery or something like that.
Definitely, excellent, because that's one of her passions, to work with children. Your task, folks, and you can do this in groups. You are counsellors in the local area, okay? You've heard Dana, Daniel's and Joe's stories. You need to think about schemes or anything else that you would create and put into place for these people so that they can actually start believing that they can do something, okay? And as we've seen from Jessica and Martin's story, they can do something better for themselves, and these people want to too, okay?
She wants to keep her street cred up, doesn't she? So she could go to a youth club.
So don't they have those groups you can go to if you have a problem, if
yeah,
you're an alcoholic?
Alcoholics Anonymous.
But stress anonymous.
What was really good, having used the stimulus of students in a completely different environment with much more challenging circumstances, and asking them to think about how they could solve their problems, what advice they would give, it takes you into a positive problem-solving approach. And then they were asked to take those skills to each other.
I asked you to write down things that you said you were very good at, and you were very proud of saying them. Then I asked you to think about things that you aren't so good at but want to be better at, okay? In your books, what I'd like you to do, okay? You are giving yourselves advice about what steps you can take, what things you can do to start to aspire to be better at those things, like running, that you said, being more confident, that you said. It doesn't matter how small the thing seems that you're doing. Who'd like to share?
I wanted to be better at listening, because sometimes when people are talking I stop listening, or I start talking. And I thought that I could maybe try and pay attention more and like try and talk a bit less.
The very fact that they have to aspire to have something or do something is quite a difficult concept for them to understand. But when we relate it back to them in smaller situations and things that are relevant to them right now, I think they understood that there is a bigger picture to what they aspire to. So today it could be learning how to run better, but tomorrow it could be starting up their business and really wanting to aspire to do what they want to do.
I thought I'd try and participate more in PE lessons and I'd get better at exercising and eating more healthily.
Okay folks, excellent, that's absolutely fantastic. You've spoken about the things that you weren't so good at but you wanted to do better at, okay? And you've actually taken into consideration that you can do things, take small steps to be where you want to be. You've been absolutely fantastic, thank you so much. Fitting in aspirational targets into citizenship isn't actually that difficult because we also do careers education. I thought it would be a bit more difficult in RE, but here, because it's so focused on their beliefs and their values, it's quite interesting to try and fit the idea into their values because they understand that their values may be linked to their aspirations and what they want in the future.
In the RE lesson, I thought it was really impressive how the teacher brought into the classroom some inspirational achievement. Pupils in another part of the world with real challenges, but taking control and making a difference to themselves and to others. She then asked the children to think about small steps, small things that they wanted to change, things that they could change, which is empowering, but also making it quite clear to them that by changing small things, you actually move towards your goals. And that's a really important message for younger students to understand.
With lessons such as these, designed to encourage students to make a difference to their own lives and to the lives of others, the ideas can then be reinforced through the rest of school life.
From September, we have inter-tutor group activities, which all lead to points towards a festival that we do at the end of the year, where every student takes part. And so there's not the old style of where you'd have students sitting out watching a sports day with the best taking part. It's literally 100% of children will all be involved in it.
I mean, I think for me, the satisfaction is seeing student engagement happening at all kinds of levels, so that you'll see the child who had kind of written themselves off in PE and sport turning up to the fitness suite at lunchtime, or someone who thought they weren't very good at a particular subject suddenly saying, I can realise I can do it. Now, we all in all schools get that from time to time, and it's one of the best things about the job. But I think what we're pleased about is that the ethos here so far seems to be encouraging that to happen more and more for those students who are fairly easy to lose. And I guess ultimately those are the ones I'm most interested in, because at school I would have been one of those myself, and so it's nice to see them getting a real sense of satisfaction.
I think we're getting better at understanding that the targets are made up of children, but what we've got to do, and I think we're some way on that dialogue, is by saying that the targets have not got to drive the agenda, the children's attainment does. And if you think about individual children's achievement, you'll get your targets anyway. And you may even find you exceed them.